Hey guys, welcome to the next week two of our little experiment. I hope you had a good weekend. Hope everything went well, and hope you are surviving as things are going to get a little bit more claustrophobic, I think. I don't know if you know, but the announcement was that tonight, starting tonight at midnight, you're sort of stuck in your house even more. So, hopefully we get through these next couple of weeks and things get a lot better, but we'll see. All right, well, let's get this going here. So this is about the Pacific campaign in the war. uh, it's been a little bit, but that first section was about sort of Hitler and Germany's initial successes, very quickly taking over Poland and Denmark and Norway and the Netherlands and Belgium and France, um, moving down into the Balkans and North Africa, and very quickly establishing just victory after victory after victory. Japan started out much the same way, with their war starting. We had talked about some of their early aggression, which I'll list here in a moment, and then over the course of 1940 and early 1941, just success after success after success. And I'm going to utter this a couple of times, but you have to sort of understand how devastating and how quickly it seemed the war was just going the wrong way if you were, part of the Allied side. It was devastating and demoralizing. So when we see those little victories, the Battle of Britain's not succeeding. When we get to the Battle of the Coral Sea, even though it's technically a loss for the Allied forces in terms of they lost more than Japan did, they still felt revitalized by the battle, because certain things happened. So we'll talk about that as we go. All right, so here we are. All right, so Japan and Germany and Italy actually signed a treaty, and that didn't actually happen until 1940. So there was aggression going on the Japanese side, there was aggression going on the German and the Italian side, but they weren't technically allies until 1940 in September. You might remember Japan having attacked Manchuria way back in 1931. We talked about that, and then they extended that war into China in 1937. I'm going to have some maps along the way just to make sure that we're clear on all of that. And of course, they had a long time feud with the Soviet Union, with Russia. All right. We remember the 1905, 04, 05 war, the Japanese-Russo war, and they'd struggled over Manchuria with Russia and now the Soviet Union for a long time. All right, so starting the war with America, of course, was the attack on Pearl Harbor. Just like America or Britain had acquired the Enigma machine and was able to break some of the codes with the Germans, we actually had broken some of the Japanese code before Pearl Harbor and before the war then for us. And we knew that they had designs on Hawaii, but we didn't know when or how or what was going to exactly happen. We knew that Japan was trying to plan for a lot of attacks and expanding their empire, but again, we didn't know exactly where or how. We were worried mostly about attacks on the Philippines and Guam, which were much farther west, much closer to Japan than Hawaii was, and were possessions of the United States, not states. Although Hawaii was not a state at this time either, but there were a lot more Americans living on Hawaii, whereas Guam and the Philippines were more territories and possessions. As a result, when in 1937 Japan attacked China, we supported China. We actually sent aid to China, trying to defeat Japan there so that they wouldn't have designs on other places and be successful, expanding. Then early in 1941, well, mid 1941 in July, Japan also attacked French Indochina. And you see that term, Indochina, and what it means, and I'll show you on the map in a moment, is the area to the south of China and in that little, let's see here if I can, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Interesting. Let's see if we can undo that. No. All right. Well, hopefully this goes away in a second. Little technical difficulty to bring you back to what we normally do. Mess up in class. All right. Anyway, Japan in July 1941 attacked French Indochina. Indochina is that word there, including Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. And I will show that to you on the map on the next slide. All right. I was hoping to have the pointer, but hopefully the mouse operates, but I don't think it does. There we go, pointer options. Let's do the laser pointer. All right, cool. So this is French Indochina. This is Cambodia and Laos and Vietnam. Vietnam along the coast and Laos and Cambodia in here. So we have Japan up here, who had long possessed the Korean peninsula for a while. This is that attack into Manchuria back in 1931, and then they moved into attacking into China. This is the island of Taiwan. That's called Formosa here. That's the previous name before, previous name and the name at the time. You're going to see, so this is the 31 expansion. That's in 33. And this is by, the purple is by 1941, but we know that this started in 1937, and then they moved into French Indochina. And we're going to see more. They're going to take over Thailand and Burma and Malaya and Singapore down here, and the Dutch East Indies all along here. The Philippines is this United States territory we talked about. Guam is out here, maybe that, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe that is. So lots of islands out in the South Pacific, but you can see this sort of growing empire that we're going to see over the next year. All right. All right, so Japan continuing here. So the name you need to know is Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. He was the Japanese naval strategist that planned out a lot of their attacks. So he made a plan for the British and the Dutch territories that they were going to take over, the Dutch East Indies that you saw, Malaya, Singapore, Hong Kong, a number of the territories that belong to the other European powers. France also, that's why it's called French Indochina. A lot of these territories that were controlled by others. He's the one that also came up with the plan of attack on Hawaii that we know as Pearl Harbor. All right, and so here is that attack. I went quickly on that last page. If you need to pause it to get information down, feel free. But December 7th, 1941, that's the date of the attack. The next day, Franklin Roosevelt went before the Congress and made a very famous speech. And he starts his speech with, yesterday, December 7th, a date which will live in infamy. And infamy is fame, but for negative reasons, bad reasons, so infamous. So anyway, a date which will live in infamy. And so it's a very famous phrase. It was a surprise attack. And like I said, America knew that there were attacks coming. They knew that Japan had designs on things, but they didn't always know where or when. They weren't able to decipher everything. So they'd heard hints of it, but they didn't know exactly when it was going to happen or exactly where. The damage was bad. It was 19 ships, including 8 battleships. The battleships are the huge ships that you use during war, and Hawaii was our main Pacific um, uh, harbor station where we had our troops and our Navy stationed. So it was a huge loss. 2,300 dead, 1,100 injured. Um, it was, you know, it was just devastating. So I'm going to show you, I had one more piece of information. And then this was just the address to Congress. He asked us to declare war on Japan, which they immediately did. So by the day after December 8th, we are at war with Japan. And since Japan and Italy and Germany had made an alliance, they immediately declared war on us. So it finally got us into the war. There had been a lot of hemming and hawing. There had been a lot of foreign pressure on America to join the war. We had tried to remain neutral for a long time, but we just didn't want to get into it. We were so isolationist oriented that we did not get into the war. All right, these are just some pictures of the after effects. You can see a number of the ships sort of on their side. You can see in the second picture especially this totally destroyed ship here leaning into another ship. It was bad, and obviously 2,300 deaths are not good. Another picture here. This is of the Hawaiian Islands and the actual battle site and where some of the things are. So if you were ever to go to Hawaii, and some of the things you can see, this is sort of the boneyard where some of the ships went down. There's a USS Utah here. This is the USS Arizona. And I don't know if you can quite tell. I don't think I included a photo, but if you look up the USS Arizona Memorial, it's a very distinctive shape, and it's right on top of the water, and you can see down into the water and see remains, and it's pretty interesting. All right, so as we said, Japan started off the war like gangbusters. I mean, they were just coming in and, taking over island after island, land after land, country after country, territory after territory, and it just seemed like they were indefeatable. All right, first, well, not first. We have Manchuria, we have China, but one of the early places at the same time as the attack on Pearl Harbor, they also invaded Thailand and took it over in a short matter of weeks. Hong Kong, same day, small territory. Again, I'll point that out on the map. It's really a large city, almost not like what you would think of as an entire country, but Guam, another U.S. possession on the next day. Wake Island, 3 days later, and then, of course, the Philippines, another American possession. And it started in January. That was a larger undertaking, and the United States was able to fight back a little more successfully, or at least a little more valiantly, and they did not finish taking over the Philippines until May 1942. Sorry, that went a little bit fast. You can always pause these to take down the information you need. But yeah, Thailand, Hong Kong, Guam, Wake Island, Philippines all fall within the first, well, at least we're all attacked within December or January, and they all fall in the first 5 months or so of 1941. More victories. They also, in February, went into Malaya, Singapore, like Hong Kong in that it's a very small area. And again, I'll point that out once again on the map in a minute. And the Dutch East Indies, which we now call Indonesia. That was in March 1942, including the islands like Java, Sumatra, Borneo, and Celebes. Burma, which is back on the mainland, and I have a map for you that I'm going to try to get up here because I have to stop this video in 13 seconds. So here it is. You can pause it as needed. And here's some of the places. Singapore right here. So I'm going to have to pause this right here.